You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mix with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Good evening, everybody. This is Stacy Lennox, also known as @ScottsFire on Twitter, and this is my first night sitting on the red couch with APL Mom.
Hello.
How are you?
I am fabulous. I'm very excited. Remember, we told you last week we were adding hostesses to the show, and this is Stacy's maiden venture, so we're excited.
Well, maiden venture on this show.
Yes. Stacy had a very successful other show, so.
I still do. I also am on with the Loftus Party, also on KLRN during the week. So.
Right, and tell them where you write for, where they can find your articles.
I also write for the Resurgent and NOQ Report. So
wonderful.
Every once in a while, I mouth off there. Tonight, I'm really excited, especially since news just broke today, about the Israeli elections. And I feel like a little bit of deja vu because I talked to Joseph, I don't know what, maybe 4 months ago, Joseph? 5 months ago?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and he was telling us about the first pass at a new election in Israel. And then Bibi Netanyahu and his political party got the most seats, and it was up to Bibi to build a coalition because it's a coalition government. They have more than two political parties, and so in order for a prime minister to govern, they have to bring other parties in with them and make agreements about policy and other things. So not a bad system, but Bibi couldn't do that. the last time around, and so a new election was held. Now I'm going to let Joseph tell us how that election was.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on.
More than happy to have you on, always.
Okay, so just a quick overview of the way that we do things here. I mentioned this when we spoke, like you said, about 4 months ago. Israel has numerous political parties. We have at least 20 active political parties. And usually there are just slight distinctions between them in terms of international policy or financial policy and things of the sort. And in order for there to be a functional government, those parties have to learn how to cooperate. And so the way it works is when you vote for a party. That party is looking to get as much of a percentage of the vote as they can, and that converts into seats in parliament. We have 120 seats, and so if you get a third of the popular vote, you get 40 seats. If you get 10% of the popular vote, you get 12 seats. It's pretty straightforward. But what it means is a lot of political views get represented, and as long as 61 of those seats are willing to cooperate, then whoever they agree to be the leader, it's usually the guy who runs the largest party, that individual becomes prime minister. He's just one of 120 ministers. And then from there, he also gets to appoint his cabinet. The members of the cabinet may or may not also be part of the parliament, but often they're not. So that's the basic idea. You vote, you determine how many seats you won. That's your block. You try to find other people. You try to get to 61 seats. And once you've done that, you're declared prime minister. You pick your team, as it were, and you go from there. Now, all was well and good until Netanyahu was unable to put together a coalition. And the reason he's unable to put together a coalition is because the religious right and the secular right have gotten. There's been this developed. It's developed into a very contentious relationship between the two groups. Avigdor Lieberman, former Secretary of Defense or Minister of Defense, is a very right-wing in terms of all of his political views, but he's also, I would say, anti-religious in the sense that he wants there to be absolutely no religious influence in Israeli politics. Whereas, obviously, those Orthodox parties that seek to make Israel more religious whenever possible are at odds with you. And so we're at an impasse. Netanyahu has just enough seats that he needs Lieberman in order to make a government. Benny Gantz also has just enough seats that he needs Lieberman to make a government. And Lieberman doesn't seem to be willing to sit down with either group. So that's where we are right now.
And so Lieberman would be, like, in American terms, what type of politician is he in terms of political ideology?
Well, in terms of political ideology, Lieberman is very far to the right. I would say that you're talking about somebody along the lines of, I wouldn't even know how to. I mean, give me some examples. Let's throw out some names from American politics, really like right wing,
like religious right or non-religious right?
Oh, secular right.
Like
secular right,
like Rand Paul, maybe. Oh, Jenks.
Yeah, but he's
very anti-war and foreign policy.
He's very much farther to the right than Rand Paul, because Paul is kind of a libertarian.
Yeah.
I'm talking about right wing in the like, in the, I don't know. Yes, that's actually a much better example.
John Bolton. Yeah.
John Bolton.
I had to unmute from the audience because I don't think they heard me. You guys did though.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. Somebody like John Bolton would be a great example of where Lieberman stands on all political matters, And because of his Russian background, he's very, very popular with the Russian right. You find that most of the Russians in Israel are very far to the right, and they're also secular. So they enjoy the idea of being represented by somebody who shares their views. That's the whole reason we have so many parties here, is because of situations like that. But it's never been possible in Israel to formulate a full right-wing government without the cooperation of the religious right. And so, like I said before we were on the air, if you could imagine the Republican Party, if you took away the Christian right, it would be a different party. And if you had to figure out a way to get the Christian right and the secular right to work together, otherwise, the next president is going to be, I don't know, somebody like
Elizabeth Warren.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's important to understand that Israel no longer has any functional left-wing ideologies. I mean, there's very, very few people left in Israel with what you guys are dealing with right now, like Elizabeth Warren or what's her name, that Cortez character, and we just don't have that here anymore. I mean, the Labor Party here is all but dead. I mean, there are some left-wing people, but I don't think they could put together more than about a 10 to 15 seat block between the radical. That's all.
How can we make that happen here? That sounds awesome.
Well, I think
you need to be attacked all the time, and
yeah, just have about 25 wars in a row, and you'll stop having the left wing real quick.
The left wing will disappear.
Okay, never mind.
That makes sense.
It does. Yeah. It does.
Yeah. I say that in order to clarify that, listen, Netanyahu took on a very intelligent strategy by painting Gantz as radically left wing. He's not radically left wing. He's not Elizabeth Warren or anything like that. He's just farther to the left than Netanyahu himself, with all due respect, isn't really that far right. I mean, you would never hear Netanyahu talking about a one-state solution with no Arabs in Israel. You would never hear. There's a party that with that one. You would never hear Netanyahu talk about total deregulation of the Israeli market. I mean, we forget that the right wing is more than just to bomb or not.
Right, and Israel is not, by the same, Israel is not radically right wing. You get a really bad rap for that kind of thing. Like the way you treat the Arab people, you treat them very well.
Well, listen, there's always room for improvement. There are always things that can be made better. But I would say that if you compare the life of the average Arab citizen in Israel to that in Egypt or Jordan, you'll find that life is much, much better here. They have full voting rights, they have full legal rights, and they have full representation. They've got a 12-seat block in. I think it's 12 seats. It might be a little bit less, but at least 10 seats in Parliament. I mean, they're well represented. It's not as though their views aren't being heard. But I think it's fair to remember that there are a lot of things that disagree with policy. Where Netanyahu falls a bit short. I mean, he has not pushed for any kind of real direction in a long time. So anyway, the point is, we basically have an election between far right, extremely far right. So figuring out how to settle this impasse, we're stuck because by Israeli law, if they can formulate a government it's up to 5 weeks. You have to go to election again.
So if they don't form a government in 5 weeks, then you have to go to another election?
That's the system works there. Now, there's an important detail you have to know. Israel, like a lot of parliamentary systems, has a president, The president has very little significance from a political standpoint. It's mostly just for show. But one place where he does have influence is he gets to decide in situations like this which person gets first shot putting together a government.
Okay.
So he gets to make a decision. Okay, you can try first. Then it's on Netanyahu to put together some sort of a coalition somehow. But the only real solution that I can think of right now, other than elections, is for Netanyahu to go to Benny Gantz and say, let's do what's called a unity government. And a unity government basically means you and I will rotate positions over a 4-year period. So you get the prime ministership for 2 years, I get the prime ministership for 2 years, and we can rotate between the positions. If you're prime minister, then I'll be, Secretary of Defense, Minister of Defense, and then we'll switch. And we'll work together as a unified government. The problem is unity governments tend to fall apart pretty quickly because at some point they're going to disagree on some policy. But that's the only way to get Lieberman out of the story.
Well, and right now the big hurdle is the fact that we've discussed before when you've been on with me on other platforms that Israel is a very I don't want to say segregated because that's such a loaded word in America, but people who share a lifestyle and certain set of beliefs tend to live in certain areas.
Yeah, in Israel, lifestyle is determined by geography. Anybody who knows the unwritten rules of the map knows that if you live in this city, it's because you're an Orthodox Jew. There's not going to be any activity on the Sabbath. No one's going to drive through that area of the city. The stores are going to be closed. Conversely, if you want to be in an area where you can find non-kosher food and transportation on the Sabbath and things of the sort, then you live over there. Everybody knows, and there are gradations. It's not either ultra-Orthodox or totally secular. But there is a difference between Tel Aviv, which is primarily secular, and a place like where I live in Bet Shemesh, which is primarily religious. And people go out of their way to live with people who share their religious and political and ethical views. And so it's segregated, but just not in a negative sense.
Yeah, like a Chinatown or like boroughs in New York City, where it's.
I remember when I was in the United States, there was an area. I lived in D.C. for a while. And there was an area just outside of D.C. which was predominantly Korean. I think there must have been at least 1,000 Korean families, all in about 2 square kilometer area. Well, that makes sense. You're with people of your own kind. They speak your language, not just technically speak your language, but they live the same kind of life that you do. They share
same stores, food.
And so even when you if let's pretend that I want to go buy an apartment right now. If I call a real estate agent, he's going to ask me those questions. Are you Sabbath observant? Do you keep kosher? Would you prefer an area where there's no driving and activity at all on the Sabbath? Do you mind if it's a mixed community? And the schools are set up the same way. Do you want your children in a mixed school? Do you want them in a segregated, in a separate school, boys and girls separated, et cetera, et cetera? There are even schools, for example, in the South, which are where Arabs and Christians and Jews go to school together. You can have that option if you want to. There are places you can live, and you can live that way of life, or you can move to the heart of Jerusalem to areas where it's 100% Muslim. And everybody speaks Arabic, and you can live your Muslim Arabic life. And I think that's fine. The problem with that is that as a result, what Lieberman wants, which is for there to be a kind of redistricting, sort of wipe the map clean and start over from scratch, and anybody can live anywhere and anybody can open a store anywhere. It's a very nice idea. It's actually a very American idea, a separation of church and state. But Israel was never intended to be that way. It was intended to be a country with a certain amount of religious founding. Now, it doesn't go overboard. They don't force you to be Orthodox. It's not like in, let's say, Saudi Arabia where you have to be Orthodox. But there are certain things that come with living in Israel. The government is closed on the Sabbath. There are no or very few buses on the Sabbath. Kosher food is the vast majority of restaurants are kosher. When Passover comes around, or even like right now is Rosh Hashanah, you can feel it. You can feel it everywhere you go. So what Lieberman is aiming to achieve is not only unrealistic, it's not even desirable to most of the people in the country. It's only desirable to his, let's say, block of 10 votes.
Mm-hmm.
But he has that block of 10 votes, and it's a big block.
Right.
10 votes is a lot. When you need 61, 10 votes is a lot. And when Netanyahu and Gantz only have 30 something each, right? Again, Netanyahu has 32 and Gantz has 33. Well, another 10 is a massive difference. So one option is for them to work together, Gantz and Netanyahu. That would kind of be like if they decided, okay, we're going to get a just right of center Republican like Mitt Romney, and he's going to run with a just left of center Democrat, like I don't know who that would be, maybe even Joe Biden.
Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
If you imagine Joe Manchin and Mitt Romney run together on a dual party thing, they could probably get a lot of votes that way.
True.
But what they're trying to do here is Lieberman is trying to effectively hold the entire political platform hostage. And this isn't the first time he's done this. And it's one of the things that's made him distasteful in the eyes of a lot of people. But I have a suspicion, not being an expert in Russian society, but I have a suspicion that within the Russian world, that's considered perfectly normal behavior. In other words, as far as they're concerned, yeah, that's right. Keep pounding your fist on the table until you get what you want. He hasn't lost popularity among his constituency. He's just lost popularity among the rest of the country.
Khrushchev's shoe.
Say again?
I'm not sure.
I didn't.
I said you said pounding your fist on the table is perfectly acceptable in Russian society. I said Khrushchev's shoe.
Yes, exactly. That's the same sort of mentality. So look, I mean, a lot of people. I have to say personally, when I look at Lieberman's platform, I agree with him on most things. I mean, as right wing politicians go, I share most of his ideas. I'm not vehemently anti-religious. I mean, I'm not the most orthodox guy out there, but I don't think I think he takes that too far. I think he uses that to distinguish himself from the rest. Otherwise, he's just another guy on the right. But the problem is that right now we have no real option other than a coalition government or a third election. Now,
and the third election is likely to present you with the same problem.
We're likely to end up with the exact same results. And theoretically, this could go on in perpetuity. Obviously, until it's settled, Netanyahu would continue to be prime minister. So this doesn't hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
Continue to operate as prime minister until he's unseated. And so, as far as he's concerned, let them go to a third, have a 12th one. Who cares? However, it's important to bear in mind that we're also looking at possible indictments against Netanyahu, and regardless of whether they're well-founded and justified, the fact is that they are there. And so one of the ideas that's being floated is that Netanyahu would voluntarily step down if indicted in exchange for no prosecution. Now, again, I have no way of knowing how serious that idea is. It's an idea that I've heard in the streets, so to speak. It's something we've spoken about, I've spoken about it with colleagues of mine. It's an idea. You step down, and we don't bother you on any legal. Now, again, obviously the question becomes: does Netanyahu have anything to worry about with these indictments? He certainly has stated that he's not done anything wrong. Very much in the way that the Donald Trump, Robert Mueller situation played out. If it plays out like that, then obviously Netanyahu has nothing to worry about. But I haven't dug deeply enough into the cases to know whether there's a case there, even if it's based on, shoddy prosecutorial techniques and things of the sort.
Things
I'm also not an
like a dossier,
Exactly. Or things like a third person whistleblower report about
there you go. That's been our day to day, Joseph.
I found that to be very, very strange.
It's been our last 3 years. There's a question in the chat room: if he's indicted, does he have to leave office, or is he disqualified for office?
Okay, so as of right now, the way Israeli law works, if he's indicted, he could not operate as prime minister. What they're offering is something like a unity government in which he's prime minister for 2 years. They kind of hold off on the indictments, and even if they go forward with them, he'll be allowed to continue to the end of that 2-year period, and then voluntarily step down, not be prosecuted, and Gantz can take over.
So
that's one proposal.
In the event something like that happens, being from the United States, we're very, very egotistical and narcissistic, Joseph.
Yeah.
So between Bibi Netanyahu and a Gantz, would you see anything, and we've only got about 3 minutes left, but would you see anything fundamental changing about the Israeli-U.S. relationship or the Israeli position in terms of, the Palestinian question? Would any of those things fundamentally change?
That's a great question. I've looked into Benny Gantz, and I think, like many military generals, he's, because he was chief of staff. I mean, he's as high up as you can go. They always tend to end up a little bit farther to the left. I think a lot of that has to do with just seeing too much bloodshed.
Or fatigue.
It certainly would not affect U.S.-Israeli relationship. It's not as though Gantz has any kind of anti-American sentiment or anti-Trump sentiment or anything of the sort. So it would certainly not negatively affect U.S.-Israeli relationship. It might make the Palestinians a little happier, but at the end of the day, he's not going to get away with anything more than any left-wing politician ever tried. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's another intractable situation. At the end of the day, the best offer that the Palestinians were ever going to get, they got years and years ago, and they turned it down. Exactly, and that was Rabin. He's never going to give an offer even close to what Rabin gave. So, their best days are their best hope is behind them, which is just a failure in terms of their leadership, to secure something. But I can't see. Plus, remember, if Gantz, at the end of the day, Israeli society is not willing to give up much more than they already have, and so if Gantz takes things too far to the left, his coalition government can also fall apart.
Okay, well. We will certainly stay tuned, and as this continues to evolve, Joseph, we would love to have you back. You are always one of my favorite people to talk to.
Oh, that's so nice of you. I would be happy to. Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing saga in Israel, but that's part of the way politics work. Well, the old joke: if there are 2 Jews in the room, then there are 3 opinions.
Well, so we appreciate you. We appreciate you staying up so late. What time is it there now?
Actually, I think he got up early.
Oh, up early, yeah.
Yeah, I went to bed at 10:30, and I got up at 3:30 and had a cup of coffee, and then joined you guys. So it's about 4:30 a.m. right now.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, very much. Very informative. Thank you.
You can go back to bed.
Okay, Joseph, quickly, where can they find you on Twitter?
It's at RABBI224.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and we're going to talk about the craziness going on with the impeachment.
Get up, get your man above the red wine. Get up, get your man above the red wine. I can't get up out of bed with this crazy feeling in my head. I said, get up, get your man above the red wine. Lord, get up. Get your man above the red wine. Oh, get up. Get your man above the red wine.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
Get up, get your man above the red wine. Get up, get your man above the red wine. Oh, I can't get up out of bed with this crazy feeling in my head. I said, get up, get your man above the red wine. Get up, get your man above the red wine. Oh, get up.
All right, welcome back. That was a fabulous segment. I have listened to Joseph on Stacy's show that she previously had, and he's always fascinating. Just always. It's amazing to me how different but alike we are with Israel. Don't you think, Stacey?
I think so too. What was weird to me about most of that is it sounds like this Lieberman, this pretty far right guy, is actually trying to take people's freedoms to associate and live as they please away, which I just think is terrible. So
yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because you would think more secular would be kind of live and let live, but it actually sounds the opposite.
Yeah, because culturally, it's just very different. I mean, he always says Israel's very segregated, and I try to explain it better than that because that's such a, like I said, loaded term here. But,
right.
People live with their community who lives the way they live, and they have their own kind of set of societal, this kind of societal agreement or bargain, and it works very well. So I think disrupting that would be wrong.
Well, okay, so we would need to start talking about the craziness that happened today. I mean, that's it's insane. Anybody else in the world looking at this country, I'm sure things were crazy. I mean, just completely crazy. So the left tried Russiagate, collusion, obstruction, all that stuff. It didn't work. They were all excited about Mueller coming out and testifying, and that just fell flat on their face. And so now we have Ukraine Gate. Just
wait, can we stop the gate? There was one gate. It was called Watergate. Come up with a new thing.
Today it was Nipplegate, even. So,
so here's
Nipplegate today. What?
Oh,
right.
You don't even want to know. You don't even want to know.
If I may,
so mean. They're so mean to Trump's family. This was about Ivanka Trump speaking publicly. Do you think they talked about her conversation? Do you think they talked about her ideas and thoughts? No. So there you go. They're pigs. So
yeah.
Well,
so here's the thing that kills me about Ukraine. Just if I may, that this has been top of mind with some of us. Stacey and I have been following this a lot. I've been following it like a hound dog, and there have been some cyber security threat intelligence reports that have come out that I was completely incensed about. We covered it on Cyber Wars. They completely left the Ukraine off. And the further this story goes, the more that comes out about it, the more involved we see they were in influencing our elections far more so than Russia, or attempting to, far more so than Russia was.
I believe it, especially after reading some of the things we've been reading. I can understand why Trump said, hey, can you investigate this? This is crazy.
Well, they were investigating it, and the U.S. ambassador, Victoria Nuland, and the FBI got in their way. Sorry, I stepped on you, Stacey.
Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah, the latest, right before we came in here, and I'm going to have to give this a little context, is that they now have Lyshenko, who was a very vocally pro-Hillary, pro-Democrat government official during the 2016 election, is now telling, of course, the Washington Post that everybody over in Ukraine thought it was a precondition of their military aid to do the Biden investigation. I just need you all to know when you hear this, the guy they're talking to has already been sanctioned by a Ukrainian tribunal for giving, what did they call it, the ledger that now they're saying isn't actually a thing. The ledger of supposed financial transactions, illicit financial transactions that Paul Manafort received from members of the, Ukrainian government when he was consulting with them, and that's part of the reason he left the Trump campaign. It was actually Lyshenko that leaked that document that we now know is not legitimate, and now the Washington Post is relying on him to give the assessment of what the preconditions for the conversation between the Ukrainian president and President Trump were.
And how would he even know this? How would he even...
I believe he's still in the government. He's an elected official, not an appointee.
Yeah.
So, people may see him as some kind of credible source, but after his own tribunals, his own court system has sanctioned him and said he improperly provided that ledger, that was actually a violation of the law, and that he and the other politician he worked with were both guilty of illegal interference in the U.S. election, harming Ukraine's position in foreign relations. I don't know why anybody would take him seriously.
Well, I'm really, it's fascinating to me, and it's funny because they said release. They release it, and they said, well, that's, we need more, because that's not exactly what they wanted to hear. But it's amazing to me how many people, I read that this morning and said, I don't get it. There's nothing here. And you turn on CNN or MSNBC, and you would think that Trump just admitted to killing his mother. I mean, it's incredible to me how different people read that report differently.
Okay, well, here's what I will tell you. John Solomon at the Hill has broken a ton of news in Trump Russiagate, etc., just like Sarah Carter does, just like Andrew McCarthy does, just like all of them do, right? People that are really following this. On April 7th of 2019, John Solomon wrote an article talking. Well, he actually had an interview, and then he wrote the article with a Ukrainian official who said they had been trying to give documentation of corruption in the U.S., from U.S. individuals to U.S. agencies in D.C. for months, and they were being basically denied a visa, or their visa was being very slow walked. So the visit you saw today was the first time when they came to the UN that some of those officials have been given a visa. But at that time, they said they had sworn statements from 2 Ukrainian officials admitting that their agency tried to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential election in favor of Hillary Clinton. It included leaking an alleged ledger, so that was Lyshenko.
Yeah, among other things. There were other
contacts between Democratic figures in Washington.
Money that got moved around.
Financial records, $3 million to American accounts tied to Hunter Biden.
Don't you think that's what Giuliani went and got?
I do believe that's what Giuliani went and got, because everything that's listed in this article is something Giuliani has talked about in the last week as to having in his possession.
But let's not miss the major point of this, right? So why would President Trump need to ask them to investigate something they had clearly already investigated and were trying to get the evidence to us for nearly a year, but the FBI, an FBI agent in the embassy, the ambassador, and the FBI and the Department of Justice here in America were blocking that transfer of evidence from the Ukraine to the U.S. It was investigated. He's not asking them to investigate anything because he knows they've already done it and the evidence is already there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's just asking, can you please show me that evidence?
No, I actually think if you read the transcripts, Trump very clearly said, even in July, there was a lot of corruption there, and I think you still have some of those people around you.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think he was giving Zelensky air cover.
Yes, me too. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, true. Very true. What do you think about, so now the whistleblower, have you looked at if you look at Twitter, the left, you would think this whistleblower was like the greatest thing ever when you read what they're saying about how credible and honest and how damaging. Swalwell said it's a 5-alarm,
Okay. The IG noted he was politically biased, right? He's got a Clinton Schumer lawyer and another one who worked for somebody else who I can't recall right now, another scumbag. And his law firm, according to somebody on Fox this evening, actually goes around and encourages whistleblowers within the government.
I heard that. They paid whistleblowers.
They pay whistleblowers to come forward. So Eric Swalwell thinks it's so whatever. I can't listen to Eric Swalwell. He was
I
on
can't
Fox
either.
News earlier today, and he just lied. Oh, as Americans, we don't go to foreign governments to ask for assistance. I'm like, really? Because that's all in the record.
Oh,
it's
God.
all in the record for the Hillary Clinton campaign,
It is
the
part-
DNC, and the Obama administration.
No, actually, Mr. Swalwell, what the Democrats do is they go to foreign governments and they ask them to interfere, but then they block the evidence of it. What kills me is they've been blocking that evidence for a year, and they're sitting over here saying, but there's no evidence. No, there's no evidence because you've been blocking it for a year.
Right.
Well, and then, so you had the prosecutor, his name begins with an S, and I can't pull it off the top of my head right now, that Biden had fired, who tells Fox News in April of this year that he had a full investigative plan for Burisma, the natural gas firm that Hunter Biden worked for, that included investigations of all the executive board, both financial and criminal, to include Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was on the list. In May, Business Insider runs a report with the prosecutor that they basically installed, right? After they got the first one fired. He basically goes to Business Insider in May of this year and lies and says, oh, no, that was specific criminal complaints related to one specific member of the board. So everybody on the left took that as, oh, Hunter Biden's cleared. No, they never investigated it because of all the freaking scrutiny on them for interfering in our election.
Right.
So the Ukraine never did anything after this new prosecutor was appointed, but they had all that other information in April.
Now, can you actually imagine if they go back in and they somehow get the transcripts between Trump talking to Obama or Biden talking to Ukraine?
Here's the thing, though. This is so damaging.
Oh, God, yes.
To our diplomacy, it's not even funny. Leaders of foreign countries should be able to talk to the President of the United States in a confidential way.
Yes.
Absolutely. No, we're not. We should not and cannot go asking for a bunch of transcripts between Obama and Biden and this and that from other administrations with leaders of other countries. I think that would be disastrous.
I think it would be disastrous too. But I also, this is the thing. I don't think we should do it, and I don't think Trump should do it. But I do think that this is how leaders talk to other leaders. I don't think him saying, can you do me a favor, I think everyone in the Senate and in Congress is being completely disingenuous because very well they know that that's how Obama spoke to. We heard it on tape.
After the election.
Exactly. So we know that it's complete BS, that they're making that phrase sound way more ominous than it actually is.
If you are a leader on the world stage, part of the way that you get marginal countries to... Okay, I'll give you an example, because nobody in the media covered this. Earlier this summer, Secretary Pompeo went down and visited all the Central American countries, right?
Right.
He did some speaking engagements. The only reason I know this is because Larry O'Connor from Washington Examiner went with him and reported it. Like no other news outlet did, maybe a little bit on Fox. He went down to the president of El Salvador on behalf of the president and said, you will become a safe third country, and if you do, we will help you with economic investment, but you need to make this place a place your people want to stay because they can't come to us anymore. You put preconditions on helping people, or you're just throwing your money down a toilet.
I'm totally fine with that. This is our country. I'm totally fine with the president of our country having our country in its best interest.
It's not just our country, though. It's how the IVRD has always worked. Always have been conditions on financial support, whether it's for domestic reasons or defense reasons. There were always conditions on it.
But it doesn't generally interfere with the politics of a country like a prosecutor. I mean, that looks more like a clear conflict of interest to me, just because of the familiar relation between Biden and his son. But Lou, can you also explain that Joe Biden may be a candidate for the Democratic nomination, and he's not the nominee? So we're not stealing an election, and it doesn't look like he's going to be the nominee. And I think this is half of why this is happening. The DNC doesn't want him. They can't have a white man. They at least need Warren because she's a chick.
Well, you want me to talk about the presidential responsibility thing?
The presidential Article 2 responsibility.
Well, okay, so beyond being, there's a primary in there. How many candidates are left in the primary field?
20.
Okay, so Biden is one of 20 in a primary field. He is not Donald Trump's political opponent. He may be politically opposed to Donald Trump, but he is not his political opponent at this point. However, he is a former vice president. He's a former vice president who is suspected of and accused of and has been investigated for corruption. Corruption not of like Spiro Agnew, $10,000. Corruption in the billions of dollars. Billions of dollars of American taxpayer money that could have been offered up to a foreign country in which he was investigated for doing just that thing. And millions of dollars that were moved out of that same country and into the hands of his son. So not only did he use his influence to make money for his son, he used American taxpayer dollars, and he also used the same to get his son potentially off of some pretty serious charges in that country. If the president of the country now, whoever it is, Donald Trump or, if it were Hillary Clinton, if they did not ask about those charges, that investigation, and request the evidence, or that the investigation be followed through on, it would be a dereliction of their duties under Article 2, Section 3, where it says they will ensure that the laws of the nation are faithfully executed. It is not a faithful execution of the laws of this country for the FBI to block the evidence of corruption that implicates Joe Biden or his son. How'd I do, Stacey?
You did very good. And in addition to that, Trump doesn't have to offer Zelensky anything because we have an agreement with Ukraine, a mutual aid agreement in criminal investigations. It was signed during the Clinton administration.
That is how CrowdStrike found out that the server in Ukraine had once had Hillary Clinton's deleted emails on it, but then they were deleted from that server, because here is how it works. If you have a mutual aid agreement for investigations with another country, you can request digital evidence off of devices in that country, and they will send them to you. CrowdStrike would have never gotten that image, and I'm guessing a little bit here because I know how it works. But my guess is CrowdStrike would have never gotten the image from Ukraine to find those emails, which is something that Hillary probably wanted them to do. And then when they found what they found, maybe they weren't so happy that they found it, but they would have never gotten that had there not been a mutual aid agreement to get that image of that server with those. And I told you, it was metadata in Slack space, which means it's deleted, but it's not deleted. You always hear, well, you can delete something, but it's never really deleted. It was one of those situations. So that's how CrowdStrike got that information, that her emails were on a Ukrainian server.
Well, I just want to ask you guys something quick. What about in May 2018 when Menendez, Durbin, Murphy, Leahy, they all wrote this letter. I mean, I guess I don't understand. They were asking to investigate into Trump for basically the same.
No, you have to look at that in the context of our mutual agreement for criminal investigations. So there was, and there was an actual investigation going on, even though it wasn't criminal, it was counterintelligence. So they could have been leveraging that agreement to get Ukraine to cooperate with Mueller. The more disturbing one is Chris Murphy going over and saying Democrats in Congress won't be as inclined to vote for your aid if you don't knock this crap off about Biden.
Right. They said the Ukraine we enjoyed bipartisan support for its U.S. aid, but that could be jeopardized if the new president acquiesced to requests by Trump's lawyer Giuliani.
Mm-hmm.
Which just shows how worried they were.
U.S. senator. This is how cynical these people are. How cynical and dishonest. But here's the bigger thing that actually concerns me about the whole Biden thing, right? I view China as just as a bigger threat than Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, yes.
All right. Biden's son got a $1.5 million investment into his hedge fund. Joe Biden basically ignored the islands the Chinese are building in the South China Sea so that they can close all the shipping lanes. Okay?
You said million. I know you meant to say billion.
It's billion.
No, billion.
Billion.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It makes me ill. Okay? So if you think China isn't motivated to get Trump, who's holding them accountable for just being who they are, dishonest, manipulating their currency,
exactly,
screwy about trade. If you think China isn't very motivated to see a Democrat back in the White House, you're crazy. They're the ones we should be terrified of.
Oh, I totally agree with you, but I think I'm fine with them investigating all of it. I have no problem with them releasing the whistleblower and talking about all of this and really looking at what Trump did, because I don't want Trump to be doing something illegal either. But I think it's completely disingenuous to pretend like his comments are somehow, what did they say? He's a mob boss.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing you're also hearing, which is just driving me nuts, we don't know if that was that was actually what was said on a call.
Right.
Really great girl went on Tucker tonight. I encourage you to go out and look at the segment. She actually worked in the White House and did the work on presidential calls. These things are not done by one person. You would have to have such a conspiracy among bureaucrats in the government who are not presidential appointees to pull off any manipulation of that transcript that you'd find out about it in less than a half an hour.
Right.
I mean, we have the leakiest White House right now that has ever existed. So you couldn't even do it.
Now, speaking of what you just said there, the leakiest White House, do you think that whoever comes forward and what they say is going to give some inclination on who the leak is?
I think the leak, you have to understand Jeff Sessions launched a huge leak investigation, and there's a couple of different ways you investigate leaks. One is to only tell one person something and see where it comes out.
Right.
So either the White House fed this to this particular individual purposefully, or this person heard it from a leaker within the White House. But yeah, I think you're going to start to see some prosecutions for that kind of behavior, hopefully in the near term. I said to Lou today, it feels like something is coming between the Durham investigation, the IG investigation, the old leak investigation, the now information Giuliani has from the Ukraine. Something is going to start to become very obvious.
I completely agree.
Me too.
Well, I think we're almost at the top of the hour. I thought the talk tonight was fascinating. Thank you, Stacey, for coming on the Red Wine. I think that it's going to be fabulous having you as a part of us, we'll
just call
Lou.
it The View, but smart.
Yeah, exactly.
The View, but smart and rational.
So again, you can find me at APL Mom on Twitter. And you can find Stacy at Scottspire.
SCOTSFYR.
And Lou?
I'm Cyber Wars Podcast on Twitter and on KLRN Sundays every other week, sometimes every week at 9 p.m.
Sounds great. And we will have Politabunny and I believe Jen next week. So, all right. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys.
Good night.
Are we done?